more and more, I think we're going to have to be really thinking about responsible deployment and development of AI. People that have been involved in the industry for a very long time that may be a little bit more technology, concerned, they just need quick wins. If done well, it absolutely has an enormous impact on productivity.
I want to kind of look at how those two aspects come together, where you have traditional practices with new technology and what that means for the industry.
There's going to be a point where AI can't physically put bricks together. I don't think that's the best solution, to be honest with you, but that's because I don't believe concrete is sustainable.
What solutions can you see in the construction industry that AI and tech can definitely fill? Hello and welcome to the Inspiring Industry Podcast, where we share our conversations with leaders from around the globe. I'm your host, Danielle Chan, and this month we're taking a look at the future of construction through the lens of AI. I don't know about you, but I personally find the rate at which AI is developing mildly unsettling, and its progression is impacting industries just as quickly. While we can debate about what the world will look like overall in 5 or 10 years' time, there are very real adjustments being made to use AI as we speak. So, as with any new technology, there are questions to consider. What are the ethical implications? How do we balance the benefits of AI with possible job displacements? Are there risks in relying on software for labor-intensive sectors? We might not have the long-term answers, but we'll do our best to take a look at how AI is being used now, especially in the construction industry. To help us do so, we're joined by specialists in the field, Chief Operating Officer Trent Miskelly and Building Science Manager Neil Freidberg. Together, Trent and Neil will outline the relationship between tech and construction in their respective roles and highlight how software, data analysis, and automation are being used to streamline processes, optimize efficiency, and possibly enhance safety in construction sites around the globe. First, we kick off our conversation with Trent Miskelly. Trent, once again, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you join us. I would just like to paint a quick picture of your career journey for those who don't know who you are. You serve as the Chief Operating Officer over at Document Crunch, which in a nutshell specializes in construction contract simplification. And prior to your time at Document Crunch, you were the operating partner at Integrated Capital. But before then, you also co-founded Level 10, which has recently joined forces with Document Crunch. So on top of being an industry innovator, you're also an entrepreneur. Could you briefly share more about Document Crunch, the work the company is doing, and Level 10?
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having us. Document Crunch, in a nutshell, is helping people get more intelligent about their contracts in the construction industry. Our co-founders actually were attorneys for large general contractors and independent legal firms that help support the construction industry. And they just had this idea that a lot of the work that they were doing to support their customers or their employers could be done using artificial intelligence. And so they started off really on a journey to figure out like how to put their brains in a box. And that is really, in a nutshell, what Document Crunch is all about. Like, how can we take this knowledge that normally is locked up in legal teams or legal experts and really help the people that are executing the projects every day or reviewing contracts every day, just be smarter about what's in those documents. And that's kind of expanded out. We support both contracts and other documents that come into play during the construction process. And up until really this year, really through 2023, we've been really focused on helping people with the risk review process, identifying what is most important in their contracts, and then giving them rationale and insights as to why they should care and what they can do about it, whether they're in the negotiation phase or whether they're in the contract's already been executed. And really the next part of our journey, and we've begun this in 2023, is now how do we get this information out of the back office and into the field, and help project managers and project teams understand what's important that they need to comply with in their construction documents.
Super brilliant. So this month we're focusing on AI in construction, and this is quickly becoming critical to safety and efficiency in the industry. Could you share specific examples of how AI has significantly improved construction processes within the business and for your clients? And what were the challenges that AI needed to overcome?
Oh, absolutely. So the core of Document Crunch, we've created domain-specific machine learning models to, with a high degree of accuracy, identify key provisions and complicated construction contracts. And so, for example, indemnity clauses or like notice clauses, like if you have any important information, we identify roughly 45 different areas of the contract that are critical to risk, and that's a little bit different in subcontracts, in which we might identify 10 or 12 different items just because it's a more narrow scope. We know that it's important with really a high degree of accuracy, 90% or better, that we need to identify this information, not only to provide trust for our customers, I mean, because we want our customers to trust our software, but also to ensure that they have consistency and efficiency in the review process. So what would normally take hours, if not days, for someone to like thoroughly review a contract, we're reducing that down to, an hour, right? And so really helping them really focus in on those areas that are most important, and being kind of really a guide by their side, if you will. And so that's where I see AI really being a benefit in the initial stage that we're at. Most recently, obviously, with the introduction of large language models, which have obviously really taken the world by storm. And in a lot of ways, there are things that introduction sped up on our roadmap, or even introduced new concepts to our roadmap that we weren't even thinking about before. So generative AI is a huge value add to what we're doing. So after we identify these key pieces of information in the contract, we can now allow our customers to go beyond the constraints of what we might provide, and now ask questions of their documents that to help them provide insights that maybe dive deeper into areas. Like, for example, one of the big things that's changing in the industry right now, because contracts are living and breathing sort of documents, right? It's just the nature of the business. We've seen things like design delegation come up as a new area of risk for a general contractor, where now they are taking on the responsibility of making design decisions that would have otherwise been a part of the architect or engineer. And now our customers are able to dive into the contracts and the specifications and identify any area where that might come up. And that's actually not only a benefit of how we have built our own native machine learning models, but it's also a benefit of these large language models that allow us to provide that context to the contracts and other documents that come into play, and allow our customers to kind of find and peer into those documents in new ways that one, make it far more efficient. I mean, some of these documents can be thousands of pages long, right? It's just impossible for someone to go find the needle in the haystack. And large language models have become just this enormous asset for quickly identifying the needle amongst the needles in the haystack. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. And there's just a lot more to come. We believe that AI and how we're able to apply AI with appropriate context will help provide more predictive capabilities of our product inside of the project execution phase. So integrating into the project management and project execution is really where I think the industry's going to go, and where we see an enormous opportunity in blue ocean for Document Crunch to help, really, once again, be that guide by our customer side, but in a more proactive sense than rather reactive sense.
And I think that that's really interesting, because that's essentially where predictive analytics, I think that's what it's referred to, kind of comes into play. And I think at the moment, there's a bit of a stereotype around what AI looks like. And the nitty gritty part of how it can be really efficient is the part that makes it really useful. So I was wondering, could you talk about any sort of instances where those analytics has led to more efficient decision making, specifically within the construction industry?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about where we are and where we're going. So, I mean, for example, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that one of the things Document Crunch really focused on initially was providing rationale and insight to our customers. And so, really, if you're in the phase of negotiating, a contract, or you're in the phase of even like having already executed a contract, what we want to do is help you be smarter about what you need to know about before you need to know it, right? And so, if you're, for example, give you a great example. So, if you have conditions in the contract that require you to send a notification or a notice based on a weather condition that causes delays on a project, you want to make sure the right people in the field know about that, right? I mean, it's fine that the back office team knows about it, and maybe they communicated it, but when it happens, you need to know what you need to do to adhere to the terms of the contract. So this is an area where we're really diving in, and we actually just announced a partnership with Procore, which is one of the leading project management solutions in the world, and we're bringing Document Crunch really to where our customers work. So in the case that these conditions come up, and that this information is starting to be submitted into the project management solution, we can let them know through our integration with Procore, hey, here's the conditions in the contract that you need to be aware of. And we can even take that as far as actually creating a notice for them. And so rather than having to do the drudgery of typing up the notice, we can just identify that this condition is arising. We need to collect a little bit of information from you, or maybe that information already exists in the project management solution. We can say, here is a notice. Please review it and send it so that you can make sure you adhere to that, so that you don't wind up having fee erosion, right? And so that's where a lot of people get in trouble, is that they don't take the steps that the contract requires, and so they wind up in situations to where they are, they can't claim, a condition that would otherwise be allowable by the terms of the contract.
And I think that an aspect like this also speaks into safety on site, because from what it sounds like, it looks like AI has that ability to sort of enhance safety protocols within the confines of the contract. Are there any sort of approaches that Document Crunch has taken to monitor and be doubly secure, if you will, of workers through AI-powered solutions?
So I'd say Document Crunch isn't there yet in terms of enabling more safety protocols. I'm sure there's some ways that we are adjacently aiding that. I mean, obviously there's certain aspects of a contract that stipulate safety conditions that must be adhered to. I wouldn't say that we're yet to the point where we're doing that as a native capability, but that's definitely a direction that we see, because we're aware of those conditions that can arise. I will say that there are some amazing solutions out there that I've seen in the field, especially from video capture to image capture, that are really aiding project teams understand what is going on in the field, and when safety conditions arise, helping them be more proactive about how to adjust the project site to adhere to that. And so we're super excited about that. Certainly, we want to partner up with companies that are going deep in those areas, and so more to come.
What impact has AI had on the efficiency and accuracy of project outcomes?
So AI is having a much bigger impact. I mean, like I said, from Document Crunch to those in-field companies focused on those areas, you're starting to see really meaningful deployments of technology and AI-based solutions to helping project teams. So in terms of quantifying it, I couldn't quite give you a number, but I mean, anecdotally, I know when we talk to our customers, more and more they are leaning into solutions that are AI enabled to help their teams across the board, right? And that comes from all the way down to the people slinging the hammers, right? So I mean, it's a new world in a lot of ways, and I think you're going to see a huge acceleration there, because one, it helps manage costs. It helps teams really get just generally more efficient, and I think that's just going to be an industry trend we see pick up pace more and more over the coming years.
you mentioned how there are those clients who are leaning in more and more. I'd love to know a bit more about the clients who are, I suppose, potential clients who are a little bit more skeptical about how AI is impacting construction, more in the sense that because the industry is very hands-on and very labor dependent, then having to turn to ERP systems, the cloud, something that's intangible, tends to be a little bit more, there's a bit more hesitancy in that regard. So how do you essentially navigate that transition for clients who are a bit more hesitant, but where you can clearly see where strategies will absolutely help benefit them?
Well, I think there's a couple of things at play in that regard. One is that for the people that have been involved in the industry for a very long time, that may be a little bit more technology, concerned, they just need quick wins, right? I mean, one of the things that I think we try to do at Document Crunch is like we see speed to value as a feature, right? And so that comes in the form of making it a fairly low investment for them to see value, right? And so for us, it's uploading a contract and being able to in minutes seeing that, oh my God, this is showing me results that are like would have taken me forever to go through. And oh my goodness, like you're able to summarize this information in a way that like I can now give to my project team because I would never want them to have to read through the contract, right? And so those quick wins allow even those that are maybe more concerned about the impact to see that there's a huge benefit for them. And so I think that's one of the attributes at play. Now, one of the other things that I think is really meaningful at play is that, I'm sure you're aware of this. I mean, there's almost like a barbell of resources in the industry. There's those that have been in the industry forever. And then there's the new generation coming up that is like already been living on mobile devices and, working with, applications, social or otherwise, that are already AI driven. And so they already have a comfort and the technology being an asset to them and something that they're just already comfortable with from day one. And I think that is going to also usher in this new wave of how do we use technology to our advantage, that is going to be less of a barrier, right? And so I think that quick wins for the existing folks that may be less comfortable, less familiar. I think that's going to be a driving force. And I think that younger generation coming in and being comfortable and just kind of pushing towards having these solutions in play. And I think overall, when you combine those things together, it's like a 1 + 1 = 3. I think you're going to start to see, and you already see it now. I mean, everybody out in the field has a mobile device, probably in their pocket, right? And so helping them, try to make it easy and like bite size for us to provide value, like when it matters, is going to be key. And so once again, I think speed is a feature here. Giving people really like tangible bite-sized value is going to be one of the big things that are going to help people kind of get over the hump and realize that you don't always have to make some extreme investment or change like your day-to-day work significantly in order to get value. And I think that is what we believe, and that's one of the things that we really lean into, because we realize, sometimes that overhead of just making the initial investment can be a barrier to entry, and we don't think it has to be that way.
Are there any areas that you're concerned about?
Oh, absolutely. So, I think we have to be really responsible about how we go about implementing AI. We really take it very seriously. Like the quality of the results that we provide to our customer have to meet a very high bar. And so, especially when it comes to AI and especially when it comes to this new evolution of large language models and generative AI, we have to be very conscious and aware to put guardrails up in our product to ensure that the results that we're providing meet that bar. And so I think with great power comes great responsibility. And I think AI is like exactly that. And so we take that very seriously in everything that we do, right? So we have subject matter experts that are evaluating, anything that we do throughout the product to make sure that it meets our standards. We work very closely with our customers in evaluating like experimental capabilities of AI before we do a massive rollout of those capabilities, just to make sure that we are giving them real value from what we're doing. and adjust accordingly. So I think that is for me, responsible AI and ensuring that we don't burden our customers or put our customers in a situation that we can't control, is going to be critical. And as I think you get further into the field and some of the ways that is going to change for people that are working in the project, it's going to be even more so important, right? Because we can't throw them off track. We can't put them in a dangerous safety situation. I mean, so more and more, I think we're going to have to be, really thinking about responsible deployment and development of AI as these technologies evolve, which they're going to do at a very rapid pace.
Brilliant. So looking towards the future, what do you see as the sort of next frontier of AI in the construction industry? Are there any sort of new emerging trends that we can highlight for our listeners?
Yeah, I think that you're going to see a co-pilot for everything. I mean, I think you're going to see this idea of the co-pilot. Microsoft's really been pushing on that concept in all of their products, from co-pilots in Word, co-pilots in presentation, co-pilots and your email. I think you're going to start to see that emerge in project management solutions. I think you're going to see that emerge in mobile applications that are used more heavily in the field. And I think that's a good overall trend, right? I mean, I think once again, it has to be built responsibly. It has to be really rolled out incrementally. But I think you're going to see that concept of the co-pilot or the guide by your side emerge as a huge trend across the industry. I know every company that we talk with, every partner we talk with, now literally because of just ChatGPT and all of that kind of hitting the world by storm, it's in every boardroom of every company we talk to. I mean, I talked to a CEO of a major general contractor recently, and he already had been using ChatGPT and been like, oh my God, like I can do this. And he's like, how could this impact like what we're doing with you guys? And I was like, in so many ways. And so, I think you're starting to see like there is, for better or worse, like everybody is aware of the fact that this technology is emerging and emerging quickly, and they're wanting to start figuring out how to take advantage of it. And if done well, and it absolutely has an enormous impact on productivity. We, even at Document Crunch, I encourage our entire team to use these technologies to improve productivity. And I think as people get more comfortable with it, as people realize what they can do with it, the power that comes with it, I think you're just going to see it pick up the pace. And we want to be, as ahead of that wave as possible. And so we kind of dog through that ourselves, and we're starting to see our customers really want to lean in and build with us. And I think that's going to be it's going to be awesome to see that emerge.
Absolutely, Trent. On a more personal note, and sort of coming into my final question, as a leader in the industry, what is the one piece of advice you've received in your career that has kept you motivated to get you where you are today?
Oh, very interesting question. I would say, I really think going back to that responsibility piece, like I as a chief operating officer of our company, I feel very responsible to make sure that we build our company in the right way. That's come from many battle scars over many companies that I've been a part of building. But I would say, doing the right thing even when no one is looking is such an important piece of the equation for me. I try to live that in the way that I build companies, and the way that I work with our team, and I think also the way that we work with our customers, for sure. I'd rather do it. I'd rather do the right thing, all the time, no matter what. And that starts with just, being truthful. Even when we make mistakes, we try to be as truthful as possible. We try to be proactive about it. And I think that builds the right type of relationship internally and externally. And so that's a big deal to us. We've instilled values at our company that I think also help us adhere to that. Even though we don't say it specifically, do the right thing when no one's looking. Like we we're very like one of our core values is to be warm-hearted, which that's something, like I said, internally and externally. We want to be really inspired to make a difference for our customers and to make a difference for ourselves, and also and in turn, we want to be growth minded. We want to grow with our customers. We want to be looking at where we can improve as a company and improve as people. And I think that really kind of all comes back to that theme is doing the right thing when no one's looking and doing the right thing in general. And I think that has always been kind of the guide by my side, and I think really has helped shape the culture of our organization and how we work with our customers.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that. Trent, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle, for inviting us, and this has been fun.
One aspect that stood out to me from my conversation with Trent was his perspective on how AI, when used responsibly, is an excellent tool to enhance human tasks. Like he said, a contract that may take hours to work through can be made comprehensive in a matter of minutes. And I think that these possibilities make the technology incredibly appealing, but some might disagree. Our second interview is with Neil Freidberg, and it introduces a more practical and sustainable perspective. With more than a decade of professional experience in the building science field, he is passionate about translating technology into tactical applications that drive sustainability and smart design. Neil is an experienced field application engineer with a demonstrated history of working in the building materials industry. Prior to joining LP Building Solutions in 2021, he worked at Owens Corning for 10 years as a building science leader. Over to Neil. Neil, I firstly just want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. And to get started, for listeners who haven't heard of you or LP Building Solutions, just tell me more about your background. How did you come to be in construction?
Sure. So thank you for having me on. My name is Neil Freidberg. I'm the building science manager here at LP. Construction is basically what I grew up in. My brother had a construction company when I was young, and summers and weekends, I'd basically work with him. Not all weekends, some weekends, depending on how my parents were feeling, right? But regardless, that's how I got into construction. So I grew up in it, young, from sweeping to fabricating to everything. And I was like, I don't want to be in construction anymore. So I'm going to go get myself an engineering degree, and then I'm right back in it, right? But my background in building science is I graduated with a bachelor's degree in architectural engineering out of A&M Kingsville. And then I was hired technically right before I graduated, but didn't fill till after, at Owens Corning for almost 12 years. Owens Corning is a fiberglass manufacturer where I worked with, honestly, some of the best building scientists, and I got trained really well. And then LP recruited me, and I've been here for almost 2.5 years now.
Brilliant. And you talked about, being building science manager. From your day-to-day running of the business, what does your role look like? What are you bringing to the construction industry?
So much. So because of my background, I'm using a lot of my installation knowledge, like the actual people who put things together and improving our systems, from patenting several items I can't truly speak about, but like ways to benefit the installer and ease of practice of what we're doing and how we install. Also, and how people handle the materials. So as they're moving sheets or panels of our products around, they tend to drop them, scratch them, and stuff like that. So I make sure that the products that we're putting out that we're making all these great claims for are performing as they need to, especially not just when in place, but also when handled.
Brilliant. From what you talked about earlier, your career to get you to where you are is pretty extensive. What would you say are your sort of motivations for the solutions that you bring towards the industry?
So it's much more of a personal goal that exceeds like any other thing, but it's making the world a better place, making the world a place where I can leave it to my children, and they can leave it to their children, something that's sustainable, something that is going to be around. And that's why I like what I do.
And I think with that, so in this episode in particular, we're taking a closer look at tech in construction. And obviously over the last decade, maybe even less than that, digitalization has been massive in the industry. And so from your experience, could you tell me about how construction is benefiting from digitalization, how that impacts you when it comes to the job site?
Sure. So it just means more specificity when it comes to product. For example, we have a customer asking for a specific size panel, and that's because that the way that they're building is affecting the way that we manufacture. Right? They're basically panelizing. So what they do is they take the construction off-site, build it in a plant, and then bring it on site. You start popping up walls, right? So that the digitalization that they've implemented in their system is affecting how our products are being used, and then on top of that, what dimensions they're asking for, right? So now, because they can focus so much on a very good visualization of the blueprint and the plans, they're asking for bigger panels or longer panels so they can avoid certain overlapping issues or even increase shear in some areas, right? So it affects us.
Can you tell me a bit more about the sort of software that you work with to essentially make your job easier?
So mine's a little different. Mine, because I do building science, I do mold analysis. I've worked with builders to understand their HVAC, their air conditioning needs or heating needs. So I stick to more of like the woofy for hygrothermal. I can do right soft. I can also do like REM rate or ecotrope for energy, right? So that's kind of where I stick to. But when it comes to like working with customers, CAD, there's REMS, not REM, Revit, there's ArchiCAD, SketchUp. So it depends on who you're working with and how big they are. Also shows you the budget they're willing to pay for these, designs. And then they can send it to us and we can work with them to help understand how and what they actually need. And then we work with the plants to see what our limitations are, right? So our biggest limitation is what we can output in the sense of dimensions, because a lot of our infrastructure is planned around these set standards of a 9-foot, 8-foot, or 10-foot panel. So it kind of limits us in what we can give out, but we're trying to improve that to have a much more diverse portfolio.
Yeah, super. I think with that, as an observer of the construction industry, right? And I think even from my perspective, where I see headlines of news, Cobard building the next sort of 3D building in Europe, that kind of stuff. There's a lot happening in the industry that I think for businesses that are trades-based, which is a sector that has a history of, we're doing what we do, we're very practical, hands-on, and you stick to what you know. I want to kind of look at how those two aspects come together, where you have traditional practices with new technology and what that means for the industry. Could you speak a little bit into that?
Yeah. So we actually have a product called NovaCore. And on our NovaCore panels, it's an insulating, it's an XPS, it's a foam plastic, 1-inch R5 attached to a 7/16 OSB panel. On those panels, we are actually putting QR codes on there because everyone has a cell phone. And we have videos in English and Spanish, especially in our areas where those matter. We're working on creating them in French, so that way when we go to Canada, there'll be some French Canadian attached to it, right? So we're providing these tools on our panels that are basically, right, they're basic panels. They don't do anything magical, right? They provide structure, they provide insulative ability, stuff like that. But it's not some magical tool that increases the benefit of the installer. So the installer, may not be comfortable with it. So we're providing all these tools where they can use tools that they're comfortable with, which is their cell phone, to scan our product, look at all the information that's provided for them, installation videos, both in English and Spanish, the documents in English and Spanish. That way, there's no barrier to the installer. So that's definitely one way that we're helping. Other ways is that we're providing So LP has a technical sales team, and they go out there and train daily, right? So that is kind of the traditional way. But as things go on, they can incorporate more of the technologies that we're developing or more of the items that we're working on into those products. And they're probably the best people who are on site talking to these installers.
Brilliant. So I think essentially what you're saying is that in as much as it's about new technology, it's also about having the people to facilitate integrating with that technology.
Yes.
Which I suppose in a way also maintains the sort of humanness in it. Because I think another aspect to that is AI in construction. How are you seeing AI take a more dominant presence in what the construction industry looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because I'm a big nerd when it comes to technology, right? I love it. AI is one of those things that there's going to be a point where AI can't physically put bricks together or can't physically nail something until you build that device that can, right? So we'll get to a point where we'll see this being incorporated. Are we there now? No. How can we get there? 100%. 100%. There's no reason why an AI program can't look at a plan, understand the shear nailing pattern of something, and then tell you how. In fact, I'm gonna go back to the penalizer plants. When I was looking at the penalizer plants and how they were putting stuff together, they had a screen that knew exactly the wall you were building, and it told you what stud to pick. Like it said, hey, pick this length for this corner, pick this length for this piece around the window, stuff like that, right? So while I think it was just a projection from a projector, there's going to be a point where it's going to be able to say, hey, that wood you're looking for is over here, basically have like a laser or something pointing to it. That way the person putting it together or then the machine putting it together doesn't have to think about it, just goes and grabs it and puts it. So yeah, I mean, it's coming. I don't know when, but I'm excited to see it. It's gonna make our life different.
What ways do you, or I suppose what solutions can you see in the construction industry that AI and tech can definitely fill?
Yeah, so there's a couple. I mean, so I'm gonna go back to like a smart home idea, right? So everybody talks about a smart home, and when we talk about a smart home, we're talking about the technology, the bandwidth that you can reach around a house, or like the wireless connectivity of plugs and switches, right? That's what we call today a smart house. I don't think of that as a smart house. I think of something, maybe a system that is incorporated in OSB that can detect moisture or leaks, that can send out a warning to the homeowner or building owner pre a large amount of damage. That to me is a smart home, right? So I believe that systems will be coming out like that soon. Now, I'm not saying I know of any, that's not what I'm claiming, but there's no way that people aren't thinking of how to incorporate moisture meters into wall systems or into wall configurations around plumbing that can detect a leak or can detect moisture and then warn people before there's an immense amount of damage, right? Like that to me is a smart home.
Are there any challenges when you look at the industry as a whole at the moment? Are there any challenges that you are facing that feel like tech and AI could sort of work through, but like you said, we're just not at that phase yet, and we still need tradesfolk, we still need hands-on roles to work through that?
So honestly, so there's a couple avenues that I like to think of this from. So from a manufacturing standpoint, if you're installing items into a plant around tight curves, you can use AI and programs that can help you maneuver that piece through tight curves and stuff like that, right? So that's definitely one way that things are being used today, right? We have people with drones with 3D scanners in our plants scanning things today because we're either developing or adding new technology to our plants or manufacturing sites that need this technology, right? So that's definitely one way. But another way is in day-to-day, AI may start off looking like it already, someone's setting up like a tripod and projecting onto a wall, and it telling you where it wants that electrical cable to run, where it wants a water pipe to run, to help prevent complications in construction, or you're going to have that electrician fighting for a spot next to a plumber, next to a guy dropping in ducts, or stuff like that. I think that's where it's going to start, but over time it's going to start becoming much more integrated into the system, right? It can start designing or building walls maybe on site. We have those 3D the cement 3D printer homes, right? So that's already a step forward. I don't think that's the best solution, to be honest with you, but that's because I don't believe concrete is sustainable. But I do believe that we're just starting to scratch that surface, and it's just going to improve over time.
Super. Neil, another aspect I'd like to talk to you about is sustainability, which is obviously a massive buzzword at the moment. And I think we'll also get to a point where it is a baseline requirement for a lot of companies. How can contractors and other construction-based businesses best incorporate sustainability into their practices?
So it's tough, right? So there's a lot of different understandings of sustainability, right? There's the industry standard, there's industry overall definition, but then there's also like internal industry standards. So like our OSBs manufactured using sustainable forestry practices. So we go out there and we identify the right tree at the right time, not too old, not right. So we focus on that, and then we plant 2 for 1, is from my understanding, right? So we're constantly replanting our trees so we can harvest them. And these trees are, it takes 10 years before we typically harvest a tree. So it is a long wait period, right? So in that sense, we are focusing on the right tree, the right size, but also we're also using the tree to pull out as much carbon in the air as possible, right? After about 10 years, it's pulled out about 85 to 90% of its lifetime carbon need, and then it starts slowing down. So we're harvesting right at kind of peak where it starts dying off on the benefit to the environment, stuff like that, right? So that's one way we do sustainability. But then there's also the sustainability of a product, the resiliency of a product, right? Like how it performs and how it moves, or how it can perform in the changing climates that we're seeing today.
Wonderful. What are your kind of forward projections about how quickly sustainability will be a requirement for businesses, whether that's on site, like you said, internally?
To be honest with you, I started this industry 10 years ago, and sustainability was relatively new, right? 13 years ago. And sustainability was relatively new in the sense of like we're starting to push for it. Manufacturing companies are starting to produce out reports, sustainability reports. When I worked at Owens Corning, we literally documented every net zero home we were a part of. So if I worked with a builder that built a net zero home, I documented that and gave them that information because that all matters to that company at Owens Corning. Here, we much more focus on how we affect the environment. OSB is probably one of the most efficiently produced products out there. It uses its own tree to heat up the flakes to help dry them out, so then we can press them, right? So we use close to 99% of that tree. So that's other things that are sustainable. But as far as other industries, it's coming. Like if it's not there yet, it's in the talks. I'm a part of ASHRAE, and you're constantly hearing about like decarbonization and sustainability there. So, while that's maybe 5 to 6 years ahead of the curve, sustainability was a hot topic for a while, but now they've moved on to the new decarbonization or electrification.
Super. One of the aspects that we love to highlight on the podcast, being inspiring industry, is what motivates the interviewees. And obviously you talked about how you're working with a lot of people, the difference that you're making to people's lives. What would you consider to be the most rewarding aspect of your role?
The change in construction practice that I help implement is probably the most rewarding. The fact that I can help develop a product that is going to help combat or at least be resilient enough to compete with the climate change for a home's energy consumption, right? Stuff like that. Like how a panel in a crawl space will perform based on the moisture and the ambient temperature, stuff like that, right? I can get really deep into it and really nerd out, but that's the basic gist of it. Making sure that a house performs as it's supposed to.
Super. Neil, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Neil. I must say, although it is an intimidating thought that the capabilities of AI are vastly superior to ours, ways that industry can harness data to improve efficiency could possibly help build safer sectors. However, from my perspective, as someone tentatively learning about ChatGPT, for example, I think it's absolutely worth mentioning that while AI in construction, and every industry for that matter, continues to open new doors, it is essential to approach these innovations with a sense of mindfulness. I think that the rapid pace of advancement means careful thought and consideration should be given to ensure that technology serves humanity ethically and responsibly. But that's just me. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments section. We'd love to hear from others about how AI is influencing their sector. We've also covered AI previously in an episode regarding supply chain with Sar Yaskowitz. So if you'd like to learn more, give that a listen as well. In the meantime, that's all from us. I'd like to extend a massive thank you to Trent Miskelly and Neil Freidberg for joining us. And if you liked what you heard, give it some love and hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with new episodes. For more insight into how leaders in your industry are using AI, check out the Fine Light Media website, where you can gain access to all our industry magazines, or follow Inspiring Industry on LinkedIn. Links can be found in the show notes. That's all we have for this month. Thanks for tuning in, and join us next time, where we will share our conversations with leaders from around the globe. This podcast episode is brought to you by Fine Light Media. Inspiring Industry is written and hosted by Danielle Champ. Our sound engineer and videographer is Gavin Mitchell. Lee Prothero is our creative lead, and he's joined by Jamie Alvin, our graphics designer. Rosie Clegg and Sarah Rudge are our digital marketing executives. And we'd like to extend a special thanks to our assistant editor, Mary Float, and our editor, Libby Hammond. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Fine Light Media and its team.